Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ditch Witch Diaries. We have Rebecca here to interject anywhere she wants to, and our next herb for this week is yarrow. I'm so excited to share yarrow, and I have yarrow in my garden as well. So let me share the screen and we'll get cooking. Good looking. Yarrow, look at this. Everybody is, let's see, hold on. Screen sharing is stopped. The window's closed. Okay, let me see. There we go. Yay.
There's Yarrow.
Okay. Yarrow. Okay, and that is, yarrow is called Achillea millefolium. And we're going to talk about why it is called that. But this is the botanical drawing for yarrow. This is what AI thinks yarrow looks like. You know what? The problem is the leaves, I think. Not good leaves. Because the leaves are really fern-like. And this is the yarrow. This is one. I have another big stem of yarrow growing up. But look, you can see this is what the leaves are like. They're really ferny, and they will there's magic about using that leaf, that ferny kind of part. So anyway, the parts used are the stem, the leaves, and the flowers. And other names, there's so many. Look at all these. All heal, Achillea, angel flower, arrowroot, bad man's plaything. Who else is a bad man's plaything? Hate to ask. Bloodwort, hammock, carpenter's weed, death flower, devil's mustard, devil's nettle, devil's plaything, dog daisy, eerie, field hops, gearway, gordaldo, green arrow, herbe militaris, Hierba de las cortadora. Can you say that? You say it. What is that?
De hierba de la cortadura. Cortadura means cut.
There we go.
That you've been cut. So hierba de las cortadura.
100-leaved grass, knight's milfoil, nightin, lady's mantle, milfoil, militaris, military herb, millefolium, noble yarrow, nosebleed plant, old man's mustard, old man's pepper, plumajillo, sanguinary, 7-year love, snake's grass, soldier's thousand seal, soldier's woundwort, squirrel's tail, stanch grass, stanch weed, woundwort, yarroway, and ure. Okay. After that, I need some water. So the elements are all over the place. Water, earth, air. Everybody's saying something different about yarrow. Everybody's got a different opinion. I think earth for me would be out, and this is why, is because it doesn't have a rooty component that's very important, and it isn't low growing and hardy. It's very airy. It's very like fine and airy, so air makes a lot of sense. Water, perhaps. I could be moved for water, but anyway, definitely I would say air. Planet, Saturn or Venus, depends on who you ask. Deities it's associated with are Achilles, and I had to put Achilles in here because it's listed in its Latin name. We're going to talk about it. Usually I don't list the boys, but it's got a shout out. Aphrodite, the horned one, whoever that might be. Demons dedicated to the evil one, the devil, devil. Fairies, Oshun, Yamaya. It's considered a witch's herb, so witches, and Venus. I just put that. Sabbats are Samhain and Beltane, which are interesting. And I don't know why I didn't put this in here, so I'm going to wait. Oh, because I didn't. Okay, Samhain and Beltane. We'll leave that there. Wrong one. The chakra is the crown chakra. So the plant information, millefolium means thousand-leafed, and it talks about the foliage of yarrow. You can see like there's like a million little leaves that come off of each of those bigger ones. And it is found everywhere in the world except for Africa and Antarctica. So it's part of the aster family, Asteraceae, or something, C. Asteraceae. There you go. So we're going to start here. We're going to start the cultural import with Greece, because that's where the Latin name comes from. Achillea is from the story. This is the story. Chiron taught Achilles to use yarrow to heal soldiers' wounds. And so Achilles would place the leaves. He picked the leaves on the battlefield of yarrow, and he would staunch wounds with the yarrow because it's a vulnerary. In Christianity, an interesting little story is that yarrow was the first herb in the hand of baby Jesus. And oh my gosh, you want to hear something? Okay, I just have to share this because this is so like me. So I never post any Jesus stuff, like I just don't come across it. Why would I post anything Jesus-y, right? So today, though, randomly, I saw these 3 Jesus memes that were like irreverent at best. Like they were like, one was like Jesus, like there was like this wall of like mounted steering wheels, and it's like Jesus with all his wheels, like Jesus take the wheel. And then there was like, geez, there was this other, there was a couple other ones. Okay, so all this time in my life, my brother's kids have not been my friend on Facebook. And then this one day where I see all this like irreverent Jesus humor that I post, like my brother's son decides to accept my friend request. I was like, I like quickly started deleting Jesus posts. Totally typical. Completely typical of me. Yep. That's what I swear. So okay, so now we're gonna go on though, because the cultural import, this goes on in America, but not with whitey America, with like the America that was there before whitey arrived. The Anishinaabe is an indigenous culture group that centers around the Great Lakes in Canada and the US. So it's on both sides of the Great Lakes. And yarrow, which is called Wabanugans, is something like that, is a sacred medicine of the Wabanuan religion, which is a religious group in here. And it's supposed to protect your skin during fire ceremonies that they do. It's to scare off evil. You can hang it in doorways with cedar and sweetgrass. And if a person is worried about an evil attack, especially when they're at risk, like when they're going on like a spirit quest or when they're doing something that would put them at spiritual peril, they're supposed to pound dried yarrow, mix it with sand, and pour it across doorways, window seals, and actually the entire perimeter of the foundation of your home. So I actually think that is a rad thing. Like, take note. So now we go to another part of, like, this is now in Massachusetts, not the indigenous population. You're said to walk thrice around the yarrow and say, good evening, Mr. Yarrow. I hope I see you well tonight, and trust I'll see you at a meeting tomorrow. And then they would pluck a stalk, sleep with it, and then the next man that they saw at church would be their husband-to-be. That's, you know what, again, that is a spell. That is the witchiest spell I've ever heard. And I love that the early like Christians in Massachusetts like had some idea that this wasn't some like witchy contraption. So because, and it should have been very apparent, because in the fen country of England, this was a witch's herb. So witch, there's actual evidence that a witch was tried in the as late as the 17th century for mere use of yarrow. But also, if you strew it in a doorway, a witch couldn't enter. So again, we've got like this mixed, like, is it to push witches away or to like get them to come? You know what? I think it's all bunk, and that all herbs are witches' herbs. Like, that's all itches. I don't think there's any herb that's not a witch's herb. So I think they're all and I think they're all feminine too. I don't even do the masculine feminine parts. I'm like, yeah, we all have masculine feminine parts, but they're like, I call in the femininity of like the Empress card, like Mother Nature, Gaia, like fertility of the land kind of mother. So lore, stories, and cultural import, the British Isles. So to dream of a husband or wife, of your future husband or wife, you were supposed to sew in a flannel mojo bag and a yarrow in a mojo bag and place it under your pillow and repeat, "Thou pretty herb of Venus tree, thy true name is Yarrow. Now who my bosom friend must be, pray tell thou me tomorrow." So in Aberdeen, though, they said a different thing. They said, "Oh, it's a bonny May morning. I came to put the yarrow. I hope before I go to see my morrow." Or, good morrow to thee, bra yarrow, and thrice good morrow to thee. I pray thee tell me today or tomorrow, who is my true love to be?" Then they would open their eyes and see their husband to be. So there's a lot of this "who's my husband" kind of magic that's going on around yarrow as well. In Ireland, you're supposed to hang it on midsummer to turn away evil and to protect the home, which then, sorry folks, I'm going to have to go back here and deal with this because I knew I should have added this. There we go. Now we're back. Okay. Because it is associated with midsummer. A lot of these herbs that are associated with Samhain, if you see an herb associated with Samhain, you might want to check whether it's also associated with midsummer. There's a whole host of those, like mullein, St. John's wort. There's just like a bunch that are associated with both, like that duality of the season. Anyway. And so there's an old Gaelic incantation that you're supposed to say when you actually gather yarrow. You're supposed to say, "I pluck the smooth yarrow, that my finger be sweeter, that my lips be warmer, that my voice be gladder." It's supposed to be sacred to druids. And when traveling, you're supposed to pull 10 stalks of yarrow. You're supposed to throw one away as the tithe to the spirits, and then put the other 9 under your right heel, and no evil could touch you. Also, go further in Ireland. The Irish are just abounding in stories about this. So it was harvested with reverence. Yarrow was, there was often a poem was said before harvesting, and this is one such poem. "I will pluck the yarrow fair, that more benign will be my face, that more warmth shall be my lips, that more chaste shall be my speech. Be my speech the beams of the sun, be my lips the sap of the strawberry. May I be an isle in the sea, may I be a hill on the shore, may I be a star in the waning of the moon, may I be a staff to the weak. Wound can I every man, wound can no man me." Interesting. In China, also, there are stories. So we moved to a different location altogether. So one way of divining the I Ching, and I don't know if you know how that I Ching works. Do you have any idea about the I Ching?
More or less, it's similar to the bones. You have the sticks, and based on the sticks is what you divinate.
So usually I Ching is done with 3 coins, and you that have like one side or the other. So you have a yes or a no kind of, but it's like on or off. So it's either like, it's like a dash or a dot, like in Morse code. And so you like throw these 3 coins and they form a pattern, and there's a discrete number of patterns that could be made with 3, right? There's only so many patterns in the whole world. So there's a book of like all these possible outcomes when you like throw the I Ching, and you throw it 3 times. And so you throw this like these. So anyway, so one way of divining with the I Ching though is involves counting yarrow sticks instead of throwing the 3. So in Europe, again, back with the love divination, but this time it's a little bit strange. So in Europe, they want you to stick this thing up your nose, and you're supposed to tickle the inside of your nose, and you're supposed to say, Yarrow way, bear a white blow. If my love me, let my nose bleed now.
Oh.
And then you're supposed to blow your nose, and if the yarrow caused your nose to bleed, then your lover loved you. Wow. So it's also a beer used in beer. I picked 2 that were used in beer because Whorehound was also used in beer there. So the magical properties of yarrow. In divination, so we saw it in the Chinese I Ching and love divination all over the place. Everybody's using it in love, like the yarrow way with the tickling of the nose, the dreaming of the husband when you sew the flannel bag and say that the thing about the pretty herb of Venus tree. And also there's a Beltane tradition in Ireland where girls would make a pillow out of a stocking stuffed with yarrow, and if they slept with it under their pillow, they would dream of their future husband. Druids used dried yarrow stems for divination as well. So of course, love and divination, they were together. Hang over your bed for lasting love. Bring to a wedding for 7 years of love. I don't know what happens after the 7 years. Maybe disaster. That's 7 good years, though. 7 good ones. Improve your psychic powers. It's said to enhance your perception. And it's an herb of friendship. I love noting herbs of friendship because I would rather do friendship divination with another friend and we both agree than sometimes love divination gives me like the heebie-jeebies, like you're starting a relationship off with a kidnapping. So, but for friendship, you carry it, and it brings love for friends and others, even love from distant relations. If you want them to contact you, you can carry yarrow and think about them. So prefer purification, especially at Samhain, and it's a chakra cleanser. So healing. So we're going to talk about this in a little bit when we come to the medicinal properties, but it, like wounds, like it pulls together the sides of wounds, like it was used on the battlefield by but like Achillea millefolium, Achilles, I can't even say the name anymore. Anyway, so it also heals damaged energy and psyche. Like the skin, you like need to make sure whatever is underneath it is cleaned out. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. A lot of vulneraries, you have to make sure that the skin doesn't close over a yucky part because it will form an abscess. The same thing with this. It could heal something over the top and seal in some deep-rooted issues that then could come burbling up and become like a psychic abscess. So just make sure what you're doing. So magical properties. So the meeting of heaven and earth. Lore is that it's a witch detector. But maybe like they meant it in a bad way. Like you could tell the witches like in some way with it, but maybe it's because maybe there is truth to it because witches love yarrow. So it's like true. They do love yarrow. You can have a witch detector because if you see a witch, she'll love yarrow. And you can use it to exorcise the devil, but It's also an herb of the devil. So you've got that. Do we exercise or what? It's an herb of courage. And its symbolism in the language of flowers is everlasting love. And in the Victorian flower language is war and healing, which is interesting because that about sums it up. Love and then like and divination combined with like this like healing and war that like where things need to be knit together. So medicinal properties. It's an anti-catarrhal, which means that's mucus, and usually in your lungs, catarrh is like catarrh. It's like mucus. Antiseptic, and an astringent, a diaphoretic, a diuretic, and a benagogue. We saw that in rue before. A hepatic, a hypotensive, a stimulant, and a tonic. So used to cleanse and heal open wounds. So again, I warn you about that. Any vulnerary, you got to be careful about what's underneath there. It also has that diaphoretic quality. If you want to use it as a diaphoretic, use it as a warm infusion. So that's supposed to open pores and release toxins, but it induces sweating. So oftentimes people sweat, if you believe in sweating a cold or sweating out a fever, this is one of those herbs. Also acne, an infusion, obviously a warm infusion because it's going to open up your pores. Headache, hemorrhoids. You can use a cleansing enema of yarrow infusion 2 times per day after a bowel movement. I'm sure because it has like all the properties. Vulnerary, astringent, antiseptic, all those things. Also vaginal troubles, and of course nobody specifies what vaginal troubles you might be dealing with, but I don't know. Antiseptic, you could maybe leukorrhea, or and as an emmenagogue, maybe slow menses or something like that. So toothaches, gum infections, mouthwash. The Kauai Indians used should say that, in fact, I'm not even sure if that's the right terminology anymore. Is that outdated? The Kauai nation. Is it a nation? We'll call it a nation. The nation to me now. I've deemed you a nation, Kauai. Not that it matters, but anyway, Kauai people, Kauai nation. I don't use the raw. I'll up the ante rather than lower. And anyways, these are my sources for that I've taken for that. So let's see. Let's stop the share here and we can meet up again. And I'm so glad you got to join me. And do you know if that it's proper to call Indigenous people Indians anymore, or is that whole lingo improper? It's like the Pala Nation or Pala, or
They over here at the Register of Voters, which we have a group that's responsible for taking care of them. We call them Native Americans.
Perfect. And so First Nations, we've had this talk as well, as what now it used to be a term used only in Canada, but now I believe that they are starting, like people are starting to use First Nations language as involved in American nations as well. Have you heard that or no?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And you mentioned the Coahuila. Yeah. That group is in the southern part of the United States, and it actually enters Mexico. In the northern part of Mexico, bordering the United States, there is a state called Coahuila.
Oh, there you go. So there's an actual, it's not only a people, but it's an actual nation state in Mexico.
There were many people there, and in the process of the colonization, it was given the name of the community that had settled there.
Which then begs the question, for me, because I remember in one of our things you had talked about that each state in Mexico has its own liquor and its own.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Then when I hear that, I'm like,
very
well, so what's the
similar
special liquor? Do you know?
to like moonshine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure that the states that produce moonshine have their own recipes,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
then they become like generalized, they become popular, distilleries pick them up, and they kind of standardize. So now there are many liquors, like Bacanores associated with Sonora. Um, in Oaxaca, it's mezcal. We all know that tequila comes from Jalisco.
Yep.
Charan, that comes from Michoacan. Soho comes from Chihuahua. But originally, there were liquors that were made in the haciendas and in the communities way before there were these big distilleries. Now they're being manufactured for all of us to be able to enjoy.
I love that.
I do too. I love to go find the local liquor.
I know, exactly. I know. I love that whole idea that there's like local liquor everywhere, and it's kind of like, I know it's a special thing. And the funny thing, not the funny thing, the great thing is that there's like goddesses and like stories surrounding this liquor and these plants that
Mhm.
where the liquor arises from, which is amazing. So
Yes, because you have also things like pulque.
yeah.
Pulque cannot be very well bottled because it is a fresh concoction, but it is associated with the goddess Mayahuel.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we want pulque.
Okay, exactly. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And we're just going to say goodbye to everybody. And I
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for having me.
thank you.